How are we doing today, my lovely listeners? Whether your answer is good, bad, or maybe somewhere in between today, I hope these next few minutes provide a respite for your soul as we dive into the hard spaces. So we're continuing a series that we've been working on for social media and kind of its influence on 3 key relationships in our lives. And the first one I did with my friend Jack last week was about how it affects your view of self and your relationship with yourself. And this week I'm here with my friend Noah, who's coming back to the show. Welcome back, Noah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we are talking about how social media influences your relationship on other people and those around you. So this has been something I think we both have been thinking a lot about lately and kind of working through in our own lives. And as we're, working with youth and the next generation, this is definitely something that I've noticed that is influencing us in a lot of ways. So I kind of want to start off with talking about this, your perspective just on social media in general and how you've sort of seen it shape your relationships in your lives and how you're seeing other people in the different contexts of your life.
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to say just from the outset, we are not social media haters. Like, we're not completely anti-social media.
Yeah.
It might sound like that, but I'm really active on social media. This podcast is going to be promoted on social media.
Like and subscribe. Yeah.
Right. So we're not anti-social media, but it is important, though, to talk about some of the dangers and some of the challenges of social media if we want to be emotionally and spiritually healthy Christians.
Yes,
so this is important. So your question was, how is social media influencing just relationships in general in the different aspects of life?
Yeah.
I think that's a great question. I think the key to that is the word influence. Like, in what way is social media influencing our relationships? And as I think about influence, I think it's really easy for us to think that we're not easily influenced, but that is completely like hogwash. Like, that's just false. Like, we are very easily influenced people. I used to think that I was not really easily influenced. I just, I could just make decisions as I want. Nobody really influences me. And then I went off to college and I quickly realized how easily I was influenced. Just like, Noah, why are you thinking these thoughts?
Yeah.
Why do you look at girls this way? Why is this the desire of your heart? Why do you care about money so much? Why are you so greedy? Like, why are you so desperate to get attention? Like, it's because I'm easily influenced. And I think I don't think I'm unique in that. I think we're all easily influenced. And so the question is what is it that's going to influence us?
Yeah.
What is going to influence us?
Yeah.
And as Christians, our goal is that God and his word would influence us and not social media. But when social media is the thing that is influencing us, it becomes really dangerous. So if you're looking at people through the lens of social media, at least for me, it creates this sort of comparison game where, okay, I see you as a person through this lens of social media, and social media elevates certain things like status and money and looks and sex and just all of these things. And so that's the lens that I'm looking at you through. And so let's just say you're another guy and I'm looking at your profile on social media. I'm comparing everything. Like, as much as I don't want to admit it, I am. Like, that's just because I'm extremely competitive. And so I hate to lose. I want to be the best all of the time. I'm competitive with you. And so if I'm looking at you and I see, okay, you're getting this many likes, you are getting this much attention from girls, and it just seems like you're extremely cool because I'm looking at your highlight reel on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or Snapchat or whatever the social media would be. Well, then I start to feel like a loser. I start to feel pretty bad about myself because, like, what you're projecting on social media is up here. But I live with me. I'm in the mud with me. So I know that my life does not compare to that, like this view of yourself up here. And so when I look at you, first off, I'm competitive, but then I also get kind of resentful towards you.
Yeah.
In a sense where it's like,
yeah,
dang, they're like they're really doing better than me. And it's just like, I can't have just a straight up relationship with you without trying to like outdo you.
Yeah. You know what's so funny when you're talking about comparison, I was thinking about this the other day, is in the context of social media and the church and Christian circles and the comparison game is, I think sometimes we can even make our faith this competition of like, oh, wow, that person went on this mission trip or is doing all these things at the church and like people are posting about it. And it's like, I don't feel like, I found myself like, oh, am I Christian enough or I'm not doing enough? And like your faith starts to become this like workspace thing again. And like you, but yeah, I think I agree with everything you're saying. Like whatever we're being mastered by and worshiping is where we're tying our value. And it just really like gets skewed when it's something other than what we literally were designed to like be inundated with and like mastered by if we're turning to other things. And it's going to create all these perversions that you're talking about. And like, you know, I was listening to this podcast that was, you know, talking about the gospel and social media. And they had said this idea of how we are shaped by our habits, right? Mm-hmm. So I think social media is a habit for a lot of people. You wake up, you're on your phone. It's like, we've talked about this, like it's just this automatic thing. And so how have you seen the habits of social media, continuing to like shape like how you see other people? Because it's something that we're continuing to do and we're building these unhealthy habits that I think are creating these dangerous perspectives of what other people are.
No, you said it perfectly. You are at the end of the day your habits. Mm-hmm. And the deeper you get into a habit, mm-hmm. the more it becomes second nature. You don't even have to think about it. Yeah. So like you said, we wake up and it's, let me get on my phone. Let me check the feed. Let me see what everybody's up to. FOMO, all of that stuff. And at first that might seem kind of weird. Yeah. And like, it still kind of seems really weird if I'm being honest. But the longer you do that, it's no longer weird. That's just what you do.
It's the new norm.
And so we have to decide for ourselves, what are our habits going to be? Mm-hmm. What are the habits that I'm going to introduce into my life? Because like, again, something is going to master you. Like you see this all the way in the beginning of the Bible. Like you see this in Genesis where, you know, Cain kills Abel and the Lord says, like, sin is crouching at your door, mm-hmm. and its desire is to have you, mm-hmm. but you must master it. Yeah. And then, like, Jesus says the same thing, like, something's going to master you.
Yeah.
And you can't have two masters.
Yeah.
You can't worship God and social media. You can't worship God and money. You can't worship God and the opinions of others. Like, you can't do it.
Yeah.
You're going to have a master. You can't have two, but you're going to have one.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, it's what habits are you going to mm-hmm. implement into your life?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. There's one thing I was thinking about too is I think there's a dehumanizing aspect to how social media helps us see other people. Like the way that we act in front of our screen and the way that other people act in front of our screen creates this weird element of, I no longer see you as a person, but just an opinion or an ideology or a political view, you know, whatever it is. And so people are holding so tightly to what they stand for and believe that it creates these online arguments or opinion posts and things of like, this is what I believe, this is who I am. And so if you disagree with me, then you're evil, or we can't have this conversation. Because when you're not with the person, it's a lot easier to, just see them as this idea versus like a person who has feelings and is flawed and is working through their own, you know, what they believe on all this stuff. But how have you noticed like a dehumanizing aspect to the social media game?
Yeah, I think it's easy to see people as, like you said, these ideas, mm-hmm. when in reality, we're supposed to see them as image bearers. Mm. And when you take this image bearing nature that every single human that's ever existed has, and you take this away and you leave them only to be an idea. All you are is an idea. All you are is a URL online. That's it. Well, that's super easy to bash. That's super easy to unfollow. That's super easy to cancel. Mm-hmm. That's super easy to say whatever you want about them, mm-hmm. because they're not actually a person.
Yeah.
And so I think the goal should be to get past the screen, mm-hmm. and to say, like, there's a person, mm-hmm. on the other end of that screen. Mm-hmm. But that can be very difficult to do when you've got 1,000 different ideas coming through and like you're just scrolling and you're just scrolling through different ideas and that's all it is. They're just ideas. But no, there's more. They're people.
Yeah.
Like these are people that God created in his image. Like these are people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And we sort of talked about this in my last episode, but I'm kind of going back to something you were saying of like how we're viewing other people in terms of this image and particularly this idea of beauty. Maybe we can sort of talk about the physical aspect because I know particularly for girls, I know guys can struggle with this too, but especially with the filters and stuff on Snapchat and just the way that things have shifted. A lot of, and I've seen this in myself too, is like, you don't want to take a picture with your friends unless there's a filter on it. Or, you know, if you're talking to somebody, it's like, you're going to make sure that you know, full face makeup, you got your hair looking good. Like, you know, you're always like anxious because you're not actually like seeing like your natural beauty or like the way that God's designed you, and your definition of beauty has been limited to just this physical aspect. And we're not focusing on the things like you're talking about of holistically what makes a person beautiful. And so many times I think so many great people get looked past in dating scenes and stuff like that because, you know, even with like the online dating stuff, it becomes even easier to be like left, right, because of what we see on Instagram and Snapchat are these like molded, contoured faces that just aren't a reality. And so there's a lot of girls, I was talking with my cousin about this one time, who are going to plastic surgeons to get like, I want my face to look like this specific filter, which isn't even possible because it's literally deconstructing like your jaw and your nose and all of these things that it's just not possible. And so a lot of these girls are walking around just feeling less than. So how have you sort of noticed that maybe with some of the kids you've been working with or other women in your life or even guys in your life who struggle with this idea of beauty and image and how we're defining it through social media?
Yeah, it's in the questions that we ask about people. Like you can see what is going on just by the questions that we ask about people. So what do I mean by that? If you're in a room full of people, a room full of guys, for example, and they're talking about a specific girl, what are the questions that they're asking about her?
Yeah.
Are they asking what's the shape of her body? What does her face look like? Like what's her figure look like, or how smart is she, or just like all of these like external things that it turns people into a product. And then like you get the Tinder, you get the swipe left, swipe right. Like that's all it is. Because you're just something I'm looking at. I've got a shopping cart up here and I'm going to click on you. And you're the one I'm ready to buy. That's all it is. And it's extremely dehumanizing because you're nothing but an object. You're nothing but a product.
Can I want to...
But yeah, like the Bible just has so many different questions that we ought to be asking about people.
Right. And I like just a moment of vulnerability. I've sort of experienced this a little bit like with, I remember I was in this relationship and it was with somebody who I noticed was on Instagram a lot or was like on social media a lot. And I sort of noticed it kind of shaping the way that he would talk about other girls or even like talk about me. And so all of the praises and all of the compliments were, like you're saying, the questions or the comments were all like mostly physical. I mean, there were some, it was like a balance, but I think there was a lot of it. And it was hard for me because you're talking about a product. I started to feel consumed rather than valued. So like you're saying, it's like somebody can be like, if you're in this dating context and it's like, oh my gosh, like you get like loved bombed, you're like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing, you're so beautiful, you're all this, whatever. And it's like for a moment you feel like so valued, but then they start to like consume you and like idolize you. And I think social media does sort of shape that a lot because if you're feeding into your brain, like what you're seeing on Twitter or Instagram and stuff like that, and then you have something that you think sort of emulates what you're seeing, you start to you have a consumeristic love for that person. So I don't know if you've ever seen that in like dating contexts of like the guy-girl struggle, you know?
No, for sure. And it's exactly what we were talking about previously with the habits.
Yeah.
If social media is a habit that you have and viewing girls or viewing guys through this lens is the habit that you've made, that habit and that hunger only increases in you. And so you're going to find a girl or you're going to find a guy that's going to satisfy that hunger. But the problem is that is such a shallow view of relationships.
Yeah.
And what's more is that it only will satisfy you for a split, fleeting second until it's gone.
Yep.
Until you're not beautiful enough.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, you're hot right now for this moment. But the second I see somebody hotter on Instagram or on Twitter, now you've got to level up again because I've got this hunger in me and I'm asking certain questions of what you're supposed to look like based on this catalog that I'm looking through that tells me what somebody who's attractive is supposed to look like. And you, quite frankly, don't measure up.
Yeah.
Because you can't, because it's fake.
Right. It's so damaging when, so like if girls are basing their value off of that and guys are looking for girls with that value, creates this whole mess because then when the relationship starts to become real and they start to become human who have flaws or needs or different things like that, then it's like, oh, well, you're an inconvenience to me because I have easy access on my phone to consume what temporarily gives me this high, and then I can just move on to the next thing. And so you end up plowing through all these people. And I just think that it's really damaging to the soul because that's not how God designed relationships to be. And I think it's just not good at fostering a good perspective of female guy relationships. So it's just like really, really sad.
Yeah, I would just encourage people to try to look past the screen. But even when you're in person, look past the bones. Like, they've got a soul in there. She's got a soul in there.
Yeah.
Like, she is valued by God in heaven and carries with her a spark of his divine image in her being. She's not just a product.
Yeah.
And he's not just a product.
Yeah.
Like, these are image bearers. This is huge. We've got to get this.
Yeah. I know you and I can kind of relate to this on a 3 level. So we're both Enneagram 3s. We're very task oriented, accomplishment oriented. And you sort of touched on this at the beginning too, of like, there's this image comparison, but then there's also this accomplishment and success competition as well. And I think I walk away a lot of times from social media not feeling enough in that aspect of, I'm just never satisfied in the present moment or like with where I'm at in life because you want to do the next thing or you want to be the next thing because we're tying our value to what we do. And then we're looking at other people who seem to be doing more and are better at what they're doing. So how have you seen that play out in your own life and how have you sort of like struggled with that? And like, have you seen social media influence, how you're seeing other people from that angle?
Yeah, honestly, for me, the biggest impact that it's had on me is just overall discontentment. Discontentment with myself, discontentment with my job, discontentment with my church, discontentment with my inner circle, just overall discontentment because of the fact that, like, you know what, there's got to be something better out there. The grass is always greener.
Yeah.
Because like I'm looking on social media and I see a whole lot of green grass out there. And like my grass right here looks like the dog just peed on it. Like it's not green, it's yellow. It's dirt. It's nasty. And so it's just this discontentment. Like I'm not accomplishing as much as I could be in that job, or I could be doing more for like you said, the Lord. I could be going further in my faith. I could be accomplishing more tasks. I could be busier. I could be having a deeper to-do list. Like I could just have so many things. I could be in better shape because I see other people doing it. And so it's got to be a problem with me. Like I've got to raise up to this level. And like, again, it's the same thing. The more you climb that up, and like, it just never ends because there's always more you could be doing.
Yeah. I also see that too in like like products. Like if I'm scrolling through like TikTok or something, it's like all these girls have like these 10-step skincare routine and all these amazing products that they do. And I'm like, I definitely don't do enough when it comes to like that part of self-care. Like, oh, I need this product to like be accomplished this. So it's like not just tasks too, but it's like the products that I'm using to like, you know, go throughout my day. And it's always like, man, I'm not investing enough in like my clothes, or I'm not, you know, doing this, or my room isn't cute enough, or like all these things. And it's just like, oh, and then it's like I have these urges to just like get up and start cleaning and like buying new things and like doing stuff. It's like it's an enemy of rest. It's an enemy of this gift of like the Sabbath that God has given us. And I think like, you know, I did an interview that I'm going to release in a couple weeks about rest and like our struggle at this age. And I think social media is a big part of that, because if you want to be successful and you're a driven person, you're never going to like reach a point where you're like, I am successful. I am totally, like you're saying, with this discontentment. So there's this continual restlessness. There's this continual like self-disappointment. And I think it really does impact. And then when you're in that low state, I feel like it does impact your ability to pour into other people and to love other people well. So I don't know if, I mean, I know you're like working in youth ministry and you do a lot of teaching and you are pouring into your friends and family, obviously, but like, how have you noticed this like discontentment or this like focus here when you're like trying to also like give to people and love people and like show Jesus to other people? Like, how does that headspace, how have you noticed that like affecting your ability to minister?
Way more than I would like to admit, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
It's definitely been a challenge because of, like you said, that comparison and that you can do more. And so it almost becomes this, like you said, this cycle that continues to feed itself, where I continue to challenge myself and rise to the next level, the next level, the next level, the next level. Meanwhile, you've got all of these people around you that you could just sit down with and be present with. But for me, it makes it challenging oftentimes to sit down and be present with people because my mind's on, I've got to accomplish this next thing. And so people almost become like, these relationships that you have almost become an extension of your to-do list. So you've got 10 people on this list and I'm just trying to check them off. Like, I'm just trying to like bust through this list. And that's, and again, you're nothing but a list. You're nothing but a number. You're nothing but a product.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing you as an image bearer because you are just another person that I'm trying to reach. And it really, it's just selfish, because it's at the end of the day, it's about me.
Yep.
And so that's the struggle. That's the temptation that will always be there. And again, social media just kind of facilitates that.
Yeah. The moment you were talking about that, I was just thinking about that, how self-centric social media is. So even though you may be looking at other people's lives, you're thinking about yourself. You're putting it against your value and what you want to be. And then that can also influence this type of stuff that you want to post, the type of stuff that you want to showcase. And like, you're contributing to this madness of social media. I remember listening to Matt Chandler one time talk about that, like as a minister, if your days can be filled up with people, is it become a checklist, or are these people with souls that you can be present with and stuff? And I think it's hard when throughout our day and throughout our moments of, one of the things I've been trying this last month of April is saying no to more social things, which is really hard for me. I'm an extrovert. I love going out and doing stuff. But I really tried to create space of like, you know, people are always asking you, like, what are you doing tonight? Or what are you doing tomorrow? What are you doing? And I think I just became so overwhelmed by that. It's like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing on a Wednesday night, but I'm not going to make any plans, and I'm going to slow down and I'm going to listen. And I'm going to be present, and I'm going to allow space to exist and to not feel like I need to like check this box off and stuff. And I've noticed like, and I just started doing this, but I've started to slowly notice this ability to start to think and pray about other people more, just naturally, because it's like, if you're not, because when you're busy, a lot of the stuff is like about you and what you're doing and did this, but it's like when there's space to like breathe and move, and you're not like looking at your phone at other people's lives, it's like, oh yeah, like the Lord starts putting people on your heart to pray for, or he starts like, you know, talking to you in like the direction he wants to take your life and all this stuff. And it just like is really starting to like shape my ability to relate to the young girls that I'm working with or my friends in my life. So that self-care in that respect of like unplugging or whatever your like standard is of like cutting off your right arm and, whatever that looks like is, the Lord wants to show you this beautiful life, this life of freedom and abundance. And I just have a hard time believing that being on social media all the time can be a part of that realistically. And I know that might sound really negative towards social media, but I have met very few people who are able to not be mastered by something like that. So I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you about too is going to the scriptures. We could talk about this all day, but just like, what does God even have to say about social media? The Israelites weren't tweeting each other. There wasn't, Apple didn't exist back in the Garden of Eden, all these things. So it's like, what can we glean from the scriptures to apply to this aspect of social media and in its relationship to how we see other people?
A lot, actually. So much so. And I would start with, again, the idea that you're going to be mastered by someone or something. Like something is going to master you. We see this in Genesis. Jesus says it. Like we see this idea that you are going to be mastered by something. Even Paul in Colossians 2 here, he says, see to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy, which depends on human traditions and elemental spiritual forces of this world rather than to Christ.
Oof.
Like something is going to take you captive. He said, don't let it be this. Don't let it be these hollow, otherwise empty, deceitful traditions. Like, don't give in to them.
Yeah.
But rather, like, what should we do? We should take these thoughts captive and make them obedient to Christ and his word. Yeah. So we see people, we're going to take our thoughts about people and we're going to make them obedient to what the Bible says. And so again, like, we've got social media, we've got our church life, we've got family, we've got just all of these different voices, and something is going to control us. And so I like the way that Joshua says it when he's like, y'all can serve the Amorites, you can serve the God of your fathers. As for me and my house, we gonna serve the Lord. Like that's just and so at the end of the day, I think we've got to make a decision. Like, who is gonna be my master? Who is gonna be my Lord? Like Adonai, like God, my master. Like who's going to be that? And it's got to be the God of the Bible. It's got to be the Bible that's filtering our lens. And so then once it becomes the Bible, once we decide that it should be the Bible, then we should view relationships through that lens and not through the lens of social media. And so what does the Bible say about people then? The Bible says that people are image bearers. It says that people are created in the image of God, whether you're black, white, like male, female, like you are created in the image of God. And you are so valuable, like so valuable that Jesus compares himself to the good shepherd. The good shepherd that when he's got 99 sheep and one of them is astray, that he would leave these 99 and chase after that one. Like that's how Jesus sees people. Like that's the lens that we're trying to see people as. Like image bearers that are worth chasing after. Not worth being canceled, not worth being unfollowed, not worth like just nasty comments on their posts, but chased after because like they matter. They matter to God, so they've got to matter to us. And when you view people through the lens of social media, you're not chasing after anybody except for yourself. But if you view people through the Bible, then you're chasing. Like you become a pursuer. Like, and that I think is such a good biblical representation of how to view people. Is people are image bearers that desperately need Jesus and are worthy of being pursued. And so like that's what I would encourage myself with. That's what I encourage you with, or anybody listening, is view people the way that the Bible views people. Like so good that God would send down his son in the form of a baby. He would live a perfect life and he would die for them and he would rise again for them. But just like the most horrific death.
Yeah.
Like just this ultimate pursuit of people, just like this crazy, desperate pursuit of individuals, I think is what we see when we look through the scriptures. Yeah. And that's got to be our mindset too.
Yeah.
Not competitors, not objects, not products, but image bearers.
Yeah. That's good, Noah. And even just listening to you talk and this whole idea of being mastered, something that was like coming to mind is, what is the desire of the thing that is mastering you? So if the thing that is mastering you are these social media platforms, think about the creation of those social media platforms and the way that they were engineered and designed to impact your brain and your attention. It wants your attention. It wants your time. It is almost taking advantage of and manipulating the deepest desires that we all have, to be affirmed and to be known and to be valued and to be liked and all of these things. It's like playing with those things and putting it in a very unhealthy habit or addiction, as some people might have. But then the thing, and also your money too, right? Like there's ads and all this stuff. There's big money involved with all of this. But then to be mastered by something, like you were saying, that just wants you, doesn't want something from you, but they want you, right? So it's like, yes, there's a call to follow Jesus and to walk with him, but ultimately the most beautiful thing about heaven is being with Jesus. And so I think that is something to maybe think about too, is when you're thinking about what you want to be mastered by, that idea might kind of sound crazy. It's like, I don't want to be mastered by anything. Well, like you're going to be mastered by something. Like the reality is, do you want to be in bondage or do you want to be in freedom? Because Jesus calls us to carry our cross, but he says that his burden is easy and it is light and it is filled with grace. And so what he is calling you into might take work at times. It might not always be something we want to do. We might not always want to shut off our phone or delete Instagram or whatever your thing is, or maybe set a timer or whatever the practical thing is that you can establish these habits of in your daily life, because how you live, to like the habits that you're building are shaping how you're living your entire life. So it's like, what habits am I instilling? So I don't know if you've come across that too, of like, I know you're stepping into like a new season too, of like, you're about to get married, like they're going to get a house, like there's all like, all this other stuff is about to happen in your life. But it's like, it's like, how have you noticed, like, have you been trying to develop like habits with social media that are helping you like in stepping into this new season? Or like, what has that kind of looked for you in the last few months leading up to?
Yeah, so it's definitely not perfect. I don't want to be on here and pretend like it's perfect. It's not at all. It's messy. But thankfully, there is just so much grace in the messiness of trying to figure out life in your 20s.
Yeah.
But for me, the goal is to just, again, this thing is crouching at my door and it wants to have me, but I've got to master over it. Yeah. And so what does it look like for us to master over social media? What does it look like to have social media and the thoughts that come from that be submitted to Christ? Like, what does that look like? It's not ruling over us. It is put in its place in submission, just like sat down where it's meant to be. Yeah. Like, what does that look like? And I think again, it looks like you're taking it captive. And so like, it's not out of control. It's taken captive and made obedient to Christ. And so practically for me, that's looked like when I wake up in the morning, first things first, I'm at least going to read a chapter out of the Bible. Like before I even actually get out of bed, like I will read a chapter in the Bible. I will not go on social media, just like, because no, you're not going to have control over me. Like this Bible is going to have control over me. And so just saying like, no, it can wait. So that's been huge for me, is just deciding like, first things first, like what's most important in the morning. Other things is, I would say, get into a habit of doing a similar thing as that at nighttime for sure. So like, first thing when I wake up, I want to be my mind on the Lord. Last thing on my mind before I go to bed, I want my mind on the Lord. And then also you can track, like, I know, I'm not sure if Androids do this, but I know iPhones, you can track how long you're spending on certain apps.
Yeah, like the
and so
time.
And so you can, again, master this thing. this is the select amount of time I'm going to allow myself to spend on social media. Once it exceeds that, I'm done.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to give into the compulsion to keep on doing it more. I'm done.
Yeah.
No more. I'm done.
Yeah.
And then when you find yourself getting into this rhythm of like, I feel like I'm leaning too much into this thing and it's not really good, then just detox. Like, and so I oftentimes will do like a week long, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like if you want to stay off of social media forever, great. Like I will be there cheering you on, but it doesn't even have to be like that. Maybe it can just be like 3 or 4 days, just delete the app and just saying like, I need to just like open up my eyes to what's important. And I need to take off these goggles that I've been looking at or looking through for so long. And I need to clean them because like, I'm just not seeing straight.
Yeah. And also I think that can come with too, if you're not planning on deleting social media, is what accounts are you following? I think that's like a big one to think about. Or what am I putting out there? You know, like how are ways that we as believers can change the game of social media and like producing stuff for the gospel and stuff for his kingdom in ways that if somebody does decide to keep their social media, what they're scrolling through will be something that can encourage them or point them to the Lord or help them relate to people of like, I'm struggling with that too, like, you know, and like kind of putting more real stuff out there instead of this picture perfect world that we try to like cultivate too. So I think that's something to think about. And even just hearing you talk about, there is this, like some of you might be listening like, oh, that sounds really legalistic or like harsh or whatever. But there is an aspect of obedience that does require discipline, but knowing that you're not doing that in your own power. Like if you are a believer, you have the power that raised Christ from the dead inside of you. Like you have the Holy Spirit who can empower you and enable you to do this, because what God wants for you, he will help bring to a reality. So like be encouraged in your discipline. It might not always feel great. It might suck. Like I was listening to this podcast about this girl. She went like 15 days without her phone. And there's literally a bodily reaction to like not having your phone with you. Like that is how intense our connection to our phones in general are, not even just social media, but our phones in general. And I just think like we as believers have an advantage because we are able to just fall deeply in love with the Lord and walk into this spacious place that he's calling us into through like a discipline that he'll empower us to like carry through. So be encouraged by that. Don't think you just have to white knuckle discipline yourself into freedom, but that there's power and ability to be able to do that. But yeah, Noah, I just kind of want to close this out with any like final thoughts you would have or want to speak to somebody who's listening, who's like, I don't know if I can, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel addicted to social media and it's affecting how I'm seeing my, you know, my spouse or my friends and family, my coworkers. Like, how do I free myself of this? All that, like, just if I just sense this very like anxious listener listening to this, like, what would you say to them to encourage them to walk away hopeful and just encourage?
Yeah, let me say two things. The first thing I want to comment on the last thing that you said, just about the difficulty of just you're going one direction and completely shifting your course. That's hard.
Yeah.
Like that is difficult. And so first and foremost, there is grace for that shift. I just admit it. It's messy. It's not easy. And it's going to come with trial and error. Mm-hmm. And so there's grace for the errors. There's grace for when you fall. There's grace for when you lean too much into yourself and not into God. And there's grace for when you become overly prideful there's grace for all of that. Mm-hmm. But it's really not, it's not legalistic for you to do what's best for your soul.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can say, oh, Noah, Brenna, you guys are just being legalistic, telling me to spend more time in the Bible and get off of social media. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not saying that's what's going to save you. You're amazing because you do that, or we're amazing because we do that. Mm-hmm. I just know me. Mm-hmm. And I know that I really, really need it.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go haywire, like, super quick. Yeah. Like, I desperately need that. Yeah. And so it's not like just this hindrance to say no to social media and yes to my Bible. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, this is the pathway for my flourishing as a person. And I need that.
Yeah.
So that's number one. And then number two, to the person that that is a little bit anxious right now and just can make the connection in their mind, okay, this is affecting me, which that is step one, because a lot of people here are just like, this isn't an issue, whatever, and just going to skip through and like, I'm praying for you if that's how you are. But for the person that's made that mental connection saying, this is an issue and I'm struggling and I know something needs to change, but like, I don't know how to change it. I would encourage that person and say, you're loved. You are so incredibly loved. And everything that you see on social media, everything that you've been going to for social media, love and validation and acceptance and community, all of these things that you deeply desire and can't seem to grab a hold of for any sustainable length of time through social media, and all of the pain, all of the hurt, all of the things that you just desperately want to push past and cling on to, love and acceptance and all of these things, they are yours in Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Like all of these things, like hope, love, joy, a purpose, a reason to live, actual connection, family, all of these things are yours in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So all of the things that you're already searching for on social media, not finding, like Jesus has them. And he desperately wants to give them to you. And so my encouragement would be to just run to Jesus for everything that you're already looking for. Like you're already in search for this thing to satisfy your soul, and he's got it for you.
And you have full access to it. And like his love doesn't become more or less based on you being able to do these things. And there's so much freedom in that. So thank you, Noah. You're encouraging my own heart right now, even just listening to this. But yeah, thank you for, again, being on the show. You guys have to check out the other episode we did about true intimacy and community. I'll link it in the description. But thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of Soul Things. We talk about the hard spaces. And thank you for joining me on this journey of navigating life in your 20s. And I just want you guys to remember that even in the hard spaces, his grace abounds. See you next week.